Today, we're diving into one of the most mysterious and powerful systems in your body. We're going to talk about how to hack your internal clock.
You know that feeling, right? You're exhausted, but somehow you're also wired. Your energy is just completely off, and you can't seem to get in sync with the day. Well, you are not imagining it. That feeling is real, and it all comes down to a tiny, ancient clock deep inside your brain. It's called your circadian rhythm. You can think of it as your body's master software, right? It's this 24-hour program that evolved over millennia to help us anticipate and adapt to the daily cycle of our planet. It tells you when to feel sleepy, when to feel alert, and honestly, a whole lot more. So here's what we're going to cover. We're going to uncover how this hidden clock actually works. We'll meet the scientist who completely changed how we understand it. Then we'll reveal the single most powerful way to control it, explore the high price we pay for ignoring it, and finally, discover how sleep acts as your brain's very own nightly therapist. All right, first up, our hidden inner clock. Let's just start with a fact that is pretty mind-blowing. This clock isn't just one single thing. Nope, it's a whole network. So deep in your brain, you've got something called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, or SCN for short. That's the master clock, the conductor of the whole orchestra. But here's the incredible part. This is not a solo performance. Your heart, your liver, your kidneys, even your skin, they all have their own little local clocks, all ticking away. And the job of that master clock? It's to make sure every single one of those clocks is perfectly synchronized. For a long time, scientists had some really big questions about what actually sets that master clock. And that brings us to our central figure, Dr. Charles Czeisler, a researcher at Harvard who basically rewrote the entire rulebook on sleep. Czeisler's work over the last 40 years has been absolutely revolutionary. In 1986, he made his biggest splash, and we'll get to that in just a second. Then, in 99, he proved our natural internal day isn't 25 hours long like everyone thought, but a much more precise 24.18 hours. His work also exposed the dangers of sleep loss for doctors and, more recently, showed exactly how our modern gadgets are messing with our ancient biology. Okay, now let's really focus on that groundbreaking 1986 discovery. This was a finding so huge it landed on the front page of the New York Times. It fundamentally changed sleep science forever. See, before Czeisler, the conventional wisdom was that our clocks were set by social cues, when we eat, when we work, when we talk to people. But his research proved that was wrong. He showed that bright light is the single most powerful signal, the main Zeitgeber or time giver, that resets our master clock every single day. Our biology is wired to respond to light way more powerfully than it is to our social life. And this really illustrates the problem with our modern world, doesn't it? When you're staring at your phone late at night, that bright blue spectrum light hits your eyes and sends a direct signal to your master clock that says, hey, it's daytime, stay awake. It actively suppresses the sleep-inducing hormone melatonin, tricking your brain and pushing your entire sleep cycle later and later. So what happens when we constantly send our brains the wrong signals? When our internal clocks just fall completely out of sync with the world around us. Well, the consequences are a lot more serious than just feeling a little bit groggy. The scale of the effect is pretty staggering. Research from the NIH found that after just one single night of sleep deprivation, the amygdala, that's your brain's emotional alarm center, becomes 60% more reactive. This is exactly why you feel more irritable, more anxious, and more emotionally volatile when you're tired. Your brain's emotional accelerator is floored, and the brakes, well, they're pretty much offline. And the long-term cost? It's even higher. Chronic disruption of your circadian rhythm is linked to a pretty frightening list of serious health conditions. We're talking about an increased risk for obesity, diabetes, mood disorders like depression and bipolar disorder, and even cardiovascular problems. This isn't just about being tired. It's about your fundamental metabolic and mental health. And this brings us to a really powerful quote from Dr. Czeisler himself. He argues that we have to stop thinking of sleep as some kind of luxury and start treating it as the third pillar of health. It's every bit as critical as what you eat and how you move your body. But what is sleep actually doing for us? Well, in our final section, we're going to explore one of its most incredible functions, acting as a form of overnight therapy for your brain, especially for your emotions. This process is just fascinating. So let's say you have a stressful or emotional experience during the day. At that moment, your brain is flooded with stress chemicals like noradrenaline. Later on, when you enter REM sleep, your brain replays and processes that memory. But here's the magic trick. During REM sleep, your brain completely shuts off the production of that stress chemical. It's the only time in the entire 24-hour cycle this happens. This allows the brain to hold on to the useful information from the memory, but without all the intense emotional baggage. So you effectively sleep to remember the lesson, but you sleep to forget the painful emotional sting. It literally transforms a raw emotional memory into just a memory of an emotional event. Without that crucial REM sleep, that raw emotion never gets stripped away, and that leaves you in a state of chronic anxiety and emotional reactivity. And that brings us right back to Dr. Czeisler's pillar of health. Sleep isn't just a passive state of rest, it's an active, absolutely essential process of repair, consolidation, and emotional regulation. So, the final question is for you to think about. Is your pillar of sleep strong enough to stand on?